Hey guys, Tony Maritato here. So I recently promised someone I would post a response to a Facebook question talking about choosing your first clinic location. So this individual, I believe it was a physical therapist, was looking between two locations, one inside a CrossFit gym and one, I think it was in a plaza. I think the plaza was 1,000 square feet. And he was basically asking, what he should do. Like one might cost more, but one has more exposure and back and forth. And the thing that I had to ask first was, what are your goals? When you're choosing a location to start a business, you have to understand long term, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, what are your goals? Because it almost doesn't matter what location you pick. You're going to be successful in pretty much any location that you choose unless you do something completely off the wall. But the problem is in that success, because let's say, for example, this individual therapist says, I'm going to pick the 1,000 square foot space and I'm going to start my business there. And he does better than expected or even as good as expected. His long-term plan was to open 2 or 3 locations, to hire clinicians, to hire admin, to build a team, to actually turn this into a real business. Well, I started my practice in 800 square feet. We had 2 full-time therapists, and we were bumping into each other every single minute of every single day. There was no way we could stay in that space as we continued to scale beyond the first year, year and a half. So what did that mean? Well, if I move, which is what we ended up doing because we weren't able to expand into the adjoining space, we had to move locations. That means I had to do all new marketing. That means I had to do all new contracting. That means I had to move all of my equipment and potentially buy more equipment or different equipment. I had to convince patients who are used to coming to my clinic in a specific location to come visit me at another location. It was a monumental task to move this clinic from point A to point B. I guarantee we lost at least 30 or 40% of our growth. We had to then, really focus on almost building a brand new practice from scratch again. And that's really what you're dealing with. And so we went from 800 square feet, I think, to 1,500 square feet. This was a 3-year lease. We left after 3 years. We signed another 3-year lease. I think we moved after that 3 years into a 3rd location. These were all within a couple miles of each other, but each time we were growing and had to change. Each time we experienced a major loss in our referrals, in our traffic, and we had to build back up. The cost of moving probably exceeded the cost of just starting in a better location from the beginning. So I would tell you that you don't want to pick the space you can afford today, right? You want to pick the space that you're going to be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. If you can't afford that space today, we need to talk about financing, but that's a different issue. That's a different conversation. Because the reality is, I've talked to hundreds of therapists over the years, probably more. I've never known a therapist that got into a space bigger than they expected that didn't fill that space. I don't know if this is true, but you hear that story about goldfish in a fish tank. If you get a small fish tank, the goldfish only grows to the size the fish tank allows. You move it into a bigger fish tank and you get a bigger goldfish. I don't know, but I can tell you that almost universally, I've never met a therapist that didn't get a bigger space and grow into the bigger space. So if you can't afford the right space, the perfect space, the bigger space, maybe don't quite start yet. Or if you do, if you're like, I don't care what that crazy person says, I'm going to start today, do it, but understand that that's probably going to be a satellite office. That's probably not going to be your main office. That's probably going to be a satellite. It's going to be limited on how big it can grow. It's going to be limited on how profitable it can be. It could eventually become, a thorn in your side just because that's one more place you have to send clinicians to barely make the profit that you want to make. But I would focus on moving into the space that you would have once you're successful. That's where you want to be. I hope that helps. I hope that brings a different perspective to it. I know there's no simple answers, but the reality is you are going to be successful no matter where you go. I just want to help you be more successful. Catch you guys later.